Today, one of our biggest fans, James Schnerch. Well, boys, where do you want to start?
James the Hitman Schnerch.
Yeah, I'll hand it over to you, Mike. Why don't you let us know? Why don't you let the world know why James is joining us today?
Because he wants to talk about the fact that Billy Joe Saunders might be considering retirement after the loss to Canelo.
Really?
Yes, he's contemplating retirement from boxing following his injury stoppage, lost to Canelo last month on May 8th. People are going to say that Canelo retired Saunders if he elects to give it up at this point, 12-year professional career. You know, he's got, what is he, 30-1 right now? Yeah, so 30-1, 14 knockouts. You know, the guy is 31 years old. We all know that this is going to take some time to recoup from an injury like that. But it's not unheard of because, you know, Dubois just did it. And he came back strong, man. And it's one of those injuries is his pride hurt too much? Is that why he wants to retire? Or is it because he's too old? You know, well, it's hard to come back from an injury like that, man.
The Dubois is an interesting comparison, but like when you consider Billy Joe had like a broken cheekbone and smashed his orbital in 3 places, it might actually be, you know, it's a similar injury, but I think it might be worse, right? And it could be pride for sure, but like there's not a lot left for him to do either. You know, like how much more do you have left to prove? Like he's obviously one of the toughest guys that ever walked the planet. He fought for 1 minute and 20 seconds with a smashed face before they were like, we need to end this. Like his eyeball was like falling under his cheek. Like it was a devastating injury. So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he hangs up the gloves. And I don't think there's any shame in that either, to be honest with you. So
no, not, you know what? Not at all, man. 12-year career, you know, a 31-0, you know, you're ranked second out of 56 in the super middle out of Great Britain. Exactly. You're ranked third out of 1,153 in the super middle division. You know, he's had a great career.
Incredible career.
Where does he go from here? You know what I mean? If at the end of the day he recoups, gets back in the ring, where's he going? What's next? He's already fought for the belts and lost. You know,
there's a couple fights that are slipping my mind right now that I'd like to see. But to be honest with you, you know, when you got a guy like that, he's had a record like that, and he's been redlining his engine for the last 12 years, like you said, just like bouncing it off the rev limiter. At some point, you're just gonna have to like. There's no shame in it. It happens to all the greats. You know what I mean? And I think to go out like. The one thing that I think might hold him back is to know that Canelo was the one that ended his career, because you know that's how they're going to spin it, right? It's like Canelo finished him off, which is crazy to say considering like nobody else ever came close, right? But like the guy hits like a Mack truck. Like when you figure you break a guy's face like that with the gloves that they're wearing on, and in that kind of devastating fashion, it's just crazy. And like I think the obvious one after this is to rematch him. And do you want it? Like, if you were Billy, would you want to go back in the ring with Canelo after what just happened? Like I'd be hesitant for sure.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe after a new whole set of coaches and training.
Well,
obviously his game plan didn't work from what I saw.
Typically, you'll see that, you know, like especially after a devastating loss like that, guys will find a new camp or talk to some new people, or you know, I guess time will tell, right? Like it's still fresh. What would it be? 3 weeks off the fight? Is it 3 weeks now, or has it been a month?
Well, it's probably a month now.
It's a month, yeah. So I don't know. I there's a lot of stuff circling around on the interwebs today, or the last 4 or 5 hours. I think it's people are guessing that he's probably going to do it, but you never know, right? Until someone says they're retired, and even still, even if he says he's retired, doesn't mean that he's actually retired. Like maybe you just become an entertainer fighter, like some other people that we know. It's Saunders versus Jake Paul. It's coming up in 6 months, 8 months.
Oh my God! You know what? Yeah. Let's make it happen. You know what? Forget that. How about we get the Diaz brothers against the Pauls?
Like tag team boxing, like WWE style. Like,
definitely. You know,
could you imagine tag team boxing? Like, what a crazy thought that would be. Anyways,
That's
but yeah,
no,
no, like maybe
we're
he
starting
should
it here,
retire.
man. It's getting started right here. Tag
Yeah.
team boxing, bro, right here.
That's a brand new league. This is a whole new concept. I can't believe no one's ever thought of this. Are we live right now? Can we patent this before someone steals it? Or
Too late.
Well, too late.
tag team boxing? You imagine? That'd be crazy.
So Graham, what are your thoughts on this Billy Joe Saunders considering retirement?
I like him a lot. I've said it since day one. I like him a lot. But I'm agreeing with James on this one. There's absolutely no shame whatsoever in him hanging up the gloves and going on to a really excellent coaching career and/or management career. He's at that age. He doesn't need to step into the ring one more time. He's done it all. He's been there. He's done that. Let's move on. I'd be curious to hear James' thoughts on some of these other issues that are popping up related to all these tauntings and jeerings that are going on about who wants what title and yada yada and who's entitled to what title. I'd be curious because you're a fresh face on this show. What are your thoughts, James?
It's part of the game, and you know what? A lot of guys want a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we all know that nobody gets exactly what they want precisely, right? Like, there's always going to be somebody complaining about a purse. There's always going to be somebody complaining about a decision. There's always going to be somebody complaining about the referees. At the end of the day, like, it's the fight game. Guys are going to talk crap. They're going to try to humiliate each other. And it's part of the fun, you know? Like, that's why we love watching the sport, is seeing people's reactions, seeing people get angry, you know, the raw emotion of it all. I hope it doesn't go away. You know what I mean? I hope forever, like, it's always like that.
Out of curiosity, James, are you following any of the female fighters?
I haven't had too much time to spend on following up on much of the female boxers recently. I was paying attention probably about 3 to 4 months ago, but I don't think there's anything current that I really want to speak on. Nothing that, you know, in the last couple of months that I think really stood out to me. I know there's a lot of talent out there. But, you know, it's going to be interesting. I think maybe, you know, with the run up to the Olympics coming up here, we're going to start seeing a lot of new talent coming out after that as well. So it should be really interesting to watch. And I've been paying attention to the great programming that Christian's been doing, highlighting the Olympics that you guys focus on this channel as well. And I'm really excited for the next 3 to 4 years coming up for everybody in boxing.
Yeah, if you ask me, and I'm just going to chime in here, it's boxing, traditional boxing as we know it, not tag team or not face slapping or any of these other entertainment boxing type sports. At the end of the day, traditional boxing is rebounding because of some of these divisions are so competitive. And in Billy Joe Saunders' case, if he steps out, more power to him. He's stepping out at the top of his game, quite frankly. And there's many in his weight class that are ready and willing to take on Canelo. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I think the next fight for Canelo would be Triple G. Like, that would be amazing. Like, to get him in there and like just to see those guys go at it. And I was watching some training clips from Canelo the other day, and you know, like the side striking pads, like when you're doing your hook shots and stuff like that. It was like all they were focusing on was power, and it was incredible. They're like, no speed, only power. And the way he was hitting, you're like, oh, now I understand why he shatters bones with his fist. Like, it's insane how hard this guy hits. You know,
I believe his coach is Reynoso, and he's up for coach of the year.
Yeah, he should be.
Last time I checked, you know,
But
he's got a whole stable full of champions. You know, and he's doing it right, man. Every single guy that's in that guy's camp and coming out of his gym, you know, they're just running through the competition like it's nothing. And you know what? Canelo's one of those guys. He will go down as the greatest Mexican fighter of all time, for sure.
100%.
Right? If not one of the greatest fighters of all time.
It's been a long time since. What was the last heavyweight champ, or the last big champ from Mexico? Wasn't even a boxer, wasn't it? Cain Velasquez. I can't remember the last big one that was like a household name. Like, I know they've had champs, but like, it's
Mexico has 3,000 active boxers,
but not a lot of household names, right? Like, the Americans do a good job at kind of keeping that under wraps, right? Like, they don't really want to let other people from other countries in to their circle. So you got to be at a very high elite level if you're coming, especially in the boxing world. It's not like that in all combat sports, but it's a tough go for a lot of these guys to get out there. 3,000 boxers, and then all of a sudden one guy's the star that shines and rises to the top the way that the Canelo has. It's just it's incredible.
We have some Canadian boxers like Kareem Hackett, and he's made the jump to go down to Mexico just so he can get a jump start on his career, because you can find way more fights in Mexico than you can anywhere else in the world. And you get these guys, these young pros that go down there, and then they come out of there, finally get into, the international stage where they got, 20, 30 fights on their on their resume already, because they can get so many fights down there, because there are so many active boxers. And you know what? Like, honestly, Mexico produces great fighters, and we don't even know.
That's right.
We don't even know half of what they produce because we don't get to see it.
That's right.
There's no platform for us to watch.
Well, it's much the same as like what Lennox did. Like when Lewis left Canada, like good Canadian boy, 100% Canadian. After he fought in 84 and 88, like it was a business decision. He decided to go fight in the UK, right? Where he didn't have to tangle with guys like Tyson and Holyfield right at the beginning of his pro career. Like he got to get in there, beat a couple guys up, get his record up, and then obviously flourished and became the great Canadian athlete that we know him as today. So
the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. 2003.
That's right. He was the very last one. And it's crazy though, to think as a Canadian, and we're all Canadian. Sorry, internet, just hate to break to you, but to think that, could you imagine it if you had something that you practice at your entire life and you were very good at it, and there was just no work for you where you lived, and you'd have to like uproot your family, your whole team, leave to go to a different country, like 2 countries away across the pond, wherever it might be. I think it's a big wake-up call for Canada and boxing fans in Canada to really start getting behind our fighters and making sure that we can get people out there to see these guys. And I look forward to future Canadian fighters coming up and actually showcasing what we have here.
Well, Mike made a great point the other day, because it all boils down to management. So back in the old days, you had your Don Kings, you had your Bob Arams. Now you've got your Golden Boys, but across the pond, you got your Matchroom. I don't actually know of any Mexican promoters of that stature yet to address your earlier conversation. But look at the number. So right off today, we now have double the number of really good, solid management teams that are honest and reputable and doing well for their fighters on their roster. And Eddie Hearn's doing a great job. He really is. And I think he's really pulling up the game. Like, I think Golden Boys having to, from the West Coast, but having to take a look around the world too to bolster their roster. We've talked about Top Rank and Bob Arum and his moves lately. So there's been a lot of changes in the management aspect that gives new boxers a proper perspective on the industry, how the industry works. I mean, weren't you talking about the Charmella twins at the outset of our show?
Jermel and Jamal.
Yeah, and how I don't think they had management at the time. They might now, but that's why they couldn't get any of these big fights, because they didn't have a management.
And now Eddie Hearn is trying to push his champions to fight those champions, and he's hitting conflict with Arum from Top Rank. And I only think that's because of things that Eddie Hearn has said in the past, and Bob Arum doesn't have a liking for him anymore. And it just sucks that champions need to fight champions. Like I've been saying, this is the year of undisputed and unified titles.
Yeah,
they're trying to get all the titles together so that we know one person each weight class is the true champion. Because realistically, having these belts and all these different weight classes is just ridiculous. We got 17 weight classes, and we got 68 belts up for grabs.
It's too confusing. It's confusing. How do you follow it? And then it would be like having 3 different NHL leagues. Like it'd be like having the WHL, the NHL, and then you know what? Eventually, all the big leagues that had multiple variants of them, they all merged together anyways. So I don't know why boxing's fighting this so hard. Huge opportunity this year to unify the belts. Probably not going to happen. But I think if somebody can kind of force it, I think Eddie Hearn will probably be the guy. out of everybody else, nobody else is interested in actual sportsmen. It's all about a money grab for them. That's what, it makes it tough. And it took a lot of eyes off boxing for many, many years. You know what I mean? A lot of people still think it's rigged, which, to one degree or another, there's probably some underhanded stuff going on. But, at the end of the day, hard work, perseverance, and talent will always win against somebody trying to bet against you. So kudos to all the guys out there doing it for the right reasons.
There's a lot of guys doing it out there. They're still working 60 hours a week. That's unacceptable.
No,
you got into this profession to become a prize fighter, and when you're fighting, you're not getting a prize. And then you know what? You're waking up tomorrow morning. You're going to work at 6 a.m. Just to put boxes together in a box factory.
With a headache and a risk of CTE for all that,
right?
On top of it, right?
It's absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, I'm upset that the whole Fury and Joshua shit didn't happen. Because, that's put a big damper on the heavyweight division in boxing today. There hasn't been an undisputed since Lennox Lewis. We've never had an undisputed heavyweight champion since the 4-belt era, which started in 2004. And we got dicked around as fans waiting to see this fight. We got dicked around. We were told it was going to happen. This fight doesn't happen. And now what's happening? We got Joshua now set to fight Usyk in September. While they're fighting Tyson Fury. Are we going to see these belts come back together for a fight in the next year? Probably not.
I doubt it. How do you think? What do you think about Deontay's new training right now? Because he looks completely different.
He does look different. The thing with Deontay Wilder, he's got that right hand. And honestly, no matter what, man, he could be in a wheelchair, and if he cracks you with that, you're going to sleep.
Right.
He's got 41 knockouts, and I believe he's 44-1 with 41 knockouts.
It's curious to me because I'm like, wouldn't you want to try out your new style in a couple fights that aren't the Gypsy King before you go back in there and start trying new stuff on him? You know what I mean? Like it's brand new. He looks completely different. Like maybe you should give it a shot against somebody else who isn't a guy that has the kind of power like he has. Like it's brave, I think. You know what I mean? But like, I guess it's kind of the same as what happened in that Canelo fight with Saunders. You know what I mean? Like all roads lead back to. And at the end of the day, right? Like, I guess Deontay's willing to sign up, and I guess we'll see what Billy Joe does. But like, I think Deontay's got a puncher's chance, 100%. I really do. But I also don't think that that Fury gets knocked out. So I'm not sure what happens there. It's going to be an interesting one. I'll be putting my money down for that pay-per-view for sure.
I'll definitely be streaming that illegally. And I won't tell you what site.
There you go.
Or will I? Honestly, I think Fury Wilder 3, it needed to happen. We all know it was going to happen. That's why Wilder sat back, wasn't talking to the media, just watched this circus unfold, because he knew at the end of the day he had a contract that was signed, and he knew that they were going to side with him and make sure that that third fight happened. And that's what's happening. They offered him chances to step aside. There were fighters that were willing to step in and say, hey, I'll fight you, Wilder. But Wilder feels that he's been cheated. Ruptured eardrum in the second fight. Equilibrium's off. You're not the same guy. In the first fight, it was a draw. Fury got dropped, twice? 3 times in that fight, in the first one?
He had 10 different excuses as to why he didn't win. It wasn't any, and he never gave any credence to why he lost. Like, there's a lot of good reasons why he didn't win that fight, but it was from everything. Like the story that this kid put out, like he was so embarrassed and ashamed. He made every excuse that you could possibly make for not winning that fight. And at the end of the day, he got knocked out. And that's what the hell happened, right? Like the guy got knocked out. Take your loss graciously. You're going to fight the guy again. Stop making excuses for yourself. Like, honestly, I think he lost a lot of fans when he really started going down that road. You know what I mean? Because there's one thing that everybody loves is a gracious winner and a gracious loser. When the fight's over, you don't make excuses. The time that you make excuses are when you go back into the gym and you say, this is what I did. You watch the tape and you realize where you were wrong. And you start modifying the way that you're doing and operating. You know what I mean? You don't make excuses on the internet or just some random reporter or say all this nonsense. he honestly lost a lot of credit in my book when he started doing that. He really did. It was sad to see. You know what I mean? It's just poor sportsmanship. You know, it's take your loss, take your L, get back in the gym and beat the guy. Don't talk about it, be about it, man.
You guys see the comments?
No, I can't see comments.
Lennox Lewis versus Mike Tyson, September 2021.
No, he said he said 6 years.
Yeah, there are rumors.
He'd never get back.
That Tyson is taking on Lennox Lewis, which would be amazing because they haven't fought since 2002 was the last time those two stepped together.
Lewis knocked him out.
Didn't he get
yeah,
bit
and Lennox Lewis knocked his ass out and became the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
He's punching him right now. Look,
and,
boom.
and was the last undisputed heavyweight champion of the world.
Oh, everybody's after that Mayweather money now, eh? They're like, wait a minute, I can still fight. Like, what's next? James Toney coming back? Like, who are we gonna see next? Like,
honestly, I would love to see James Toney come back.
Oh,
one of my
God.
favorites. You know, great counter puncher, devastating knockout artist. You know, just a brawler, man. I liked watching him. I was a little upset when he stepped in the octagon and got his shit handed to him by Randy the Old Man Couture, and you know that was kind of upsetting.
You know what? I'm all down for like hype boxing and like exhibition fights and making the great ones that we never got happen, like Lewis Tyson too, right? It's just weird.
First we're gonna see Holyfield Tyson.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
So what? I got a headline for it. It's time to bite back for both of them. Good to the last bite. I don't know.
You want this a little?
Okay, last comments, and we'll wind her up.
You know what? The heavyweight division in boxing has fallen off big time. We do have a lot of great talent in the heavyweight division today. You know, we have eight guys waiting right now that are intern champions or, you know, mandatory fights. We've got a ton of heavyweights that have a lot of talent who have been waiting for this Fury Joshua fight to happen. And now that it's not happened and we know what's going on, I'm excited to watch all these guys come through and get what they deserve, and that's shots at the best. We're going to see a lot of things going on in the heavyweight division in the next year. And you know what? It has to happen because the heavyweight division always is supposed to be the most exciting, the hype. But realistically, man, these 135-pounders are, you know, they're outshowing them, man. The heavyweight division is dead. And you know what? There's such a huge talent pool, and we've been waiting for all this bullshit and just unbelievable crap. And now finally we know that this goddamn match is not happening. We can get a move on and watch these guys come up who deserve to fight for these belts. Unfortunately, we probably won't see an undisputed heavyweight champion for another 4 or 5 or 6 years because let's be real, Joshua's set to fight Usyk. Maybe Joshua loses a belt. Maybe Fury loses to Wilder. We don't know what's going to happen, but when is the next time that all 4 of these belts are going to come together in one match? We don't know.
They definitely both need to win in order for that to happen, for sure.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely. But, you know, you hold 3 belts, you know, it's going to be hard to keep them all, man. It is. And especially with the guys that are coming up who are in line to fight for those belts.
Tough on the lower back, too, eh? Carrying all that around all the time. Like, geez. Like, it'd throw my sciatica off like you wouldn't believe. I just limping around. Just carrying these belts, man.
Hey, James, it was great to have you on the show. You're welcome back anytime.
Oh, absolutely.
To your number one fan out there, Amber, who says it's nice to see a fresh face. As Micah said, anytime Amber wants to come on the show.
Oh, get her talking about boxing? Wow. I'll have to educate her first.
I was just going to say, because her last comment had something to do about Logan Paul.
Logan Paul doesn't deserve anything other than a smack in the mouth. Okay.
He got a couple of those the other day. I don't know if you've seen the video. Like,
the one where he got knocked out and Mayweather held him up.
Oh, I don't know about that. They're both disputing that now. Actually, both of them are. So,
really,
but you know what? At the end of the day,
the guy was a Division
One. Home to lay on their piles of money.
Yeah, he was $20 million and $100 million. He was a Division I champion with 20 million people on, or Division I wrestling champion with 20 million people on his YouTube account. Like, the guy, he's got it figured out. We're still talking about him, but the one I'm really excited to see is Jake. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, this Woodley fight, I think he destroys Tyron Woodley like nobody's business. I think it's going to be a massacre, an absolute massacre. And then maybe he'll start fighting some guys with some tenure in boxing. But, like, you're going against a wrestler who's been knocked out because he couldn't wrestle the last 4 fights. I think Jake Paul wins this fight hands down. With
another overhand right.
And I think he's better than Logan. I think he's a lot better than Logan Paul. And Mayweather is nowhere near as good as he was when he fought McGregor. So time will tell on that one. But
Mayweather was very disappointing in that fight.
Right. Yeah.
Mayweather was very disappointing.
He was also down 35 pounds, 6 inches, and like a 4-inch reach disadvantage. Like, he was fighting a giant. Logan Paul's way bigger than him. Like, he's a big boy. He's a big boy.
Yeah.
And
before we get off here, Claressa Shields. I wanted to touch on this a little bit.
There's the name that was escaping me when Graham was asking me about what about women boxers. I wanted to bring her up too. That's right. Okay.
So Claressa Shields, the only boxer, male or female, in history to be undisputed in 2 weight classes, okay, has chosen to make the jump to MMA.
Yes.
Come on.
She is done with boxing. She's switching sports to mixed martial arts to fight Brittany Elkin. She's relocating to New Mexico, the hub of the MMA area, to train alongside UFC great John Jones and pioneer Holly Holm. So she's on her way down to Mexico because, you know what, there's nothing left, I guess, for her in boxing. Back-to-back gold medalists in the Olympics, male or female, first time ever. Undisputed in 2 weight classes, male or female, first time. Now
it's weird, right? It's weird, right? Because, like, in MMA, women's MMA is huge, but women, like, they don't get nearly the same kind of recognition or in the boxing world as they do in MMA. Like, you can be a huge MMA star and be a female, like, huge. And it's real tough to put together a list of 10 great female boxers. It's tough. It's tough to do. They're out there, but they just don't get talked about. And in MMA, they hoist them up on top of a pedestal and praise them for what they're doing, it's just weird, the dynamic between the 2 sports for sure. But I think that's a strong move for her, to be honest with you. Like, you're right. What else is she going to do? She might as well go beat somebody else's ass in a different way and call it a day, right? Like, that's because this John Jones and Holly Holmes, that's no joke.
Well, like, she's the best female kickboxer. She's not getting the money she deserves in boxing. Let's be real. You know, she was offered, what was it, like 250,000 to, fly to the UK and fight, their champ. And you know what? At the end of the day, undisputed 2 weight classes, first person ever to do it, male or female. Why aren't you coming with the same kind of money that the men are getting? You know what? Well, the women right now are outperforming and being more entertaining in these matches than the men are.
Here's the thing: it's all about pay-per-view buys, and if no one's buying it, you're not getting paid. It's the same with the WNBA. No one's watching it. That's why they're not getting paid. It's not because of the amount of talent. It's just because they're not drawing the crowd that they need in order to get the big dollars. Like, that's the business behind it. And it's unfortunate because they're full of talent, just as talented as the men, almost as exciting to watch. They just don't get the buys. And that's the unfortunate part behind it, because they don't mix the cards up a lot either. You know what I mean? And you also got to think there was this whole stigma of foxy boxing, which kind of muddled it as well. Like, a lot of guys are still really chauvinistic about it. But like when you look at MMA, how they introduced the females, like Dana White was quoted as saying that he would never have women in the octagon. And when the first female fight came out in the UFC, it was the biggest card I think that they ever done. So in just a few short years, it changed. But when you look at the way it's promoted between the two different combat sports, they're promoted equal billing in MMA, and in boxing they're just not. They're not, and you don't have the card draw either. So if they're not filling the gate and they're not buying the pay-per-views for it, then there's just no money to be handed out. Like, that's the way she goes.
Boxing has to step it up though for the women.
They do, absolutely.
Claressa Shields became the two weight class undisputed champion on a card that she headlined during Women's History Month, during a history-making all-women's card, and it looked like going down to the local gymnasium to watch a boxing match. Pathetic.
Yeah. Well, and exactly what I was trying to say. It's all in promotion. If they're not getting the eyes on them, if they're not having the promotion, the buys aren't coming in. There's just no money for it. And I think it's a smart move for her. I think it's sad for the sport of boxing is if she's really successful, I think you're going to see a lot of women go over then at that point. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these female boxers aren't just boxers, right? They were gymnasts. They were all kinds of multi-athletes, multi-talented people that are very athletic and have all kinds of abilities. And boxing is a great sport. It's the sweet science. There's nothing like it. But are they using all of their attributes? Are they taking full advantage of all of their weapons? Instead of using 2, they could have 8, right? So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens with Claressa, and it could be a bad day for women boxing if she's successful. I think it really could be. You're going to start seeing a lot of people leave.
I just hope that we're on the verge of taking the woman out of in front of boxing, and we just refer to it as boxing because that's what it needs to be. Because 100%. these women today are pouring their heart and soul into this, and they are working harder, and they are more entertaining right now than the men. And you know what? Yep. They're not afraid to get in there and fight. They're not afraid to stand in front of each other and slug it out because it is boxing, and that's what the sport is about. And these women are literally entertaining better than the men are doing right now because the men are all ducking and dodging and politics and bullshit and money. No, the women are like, hey, you know what? You want to see a card? Watch this card because you know what? It's going to be exciting, and it is. And you know what? We really need to move the word woman out of in front of boxing.
I think it's the sign of the times. I think you see it in like just generally in the world today, the women in general are tougher than the men in general, whether you're buying groceries or you're on the highway and you're driving
or putting up with our shit.
There's a lot of men that aren't like babies or wimps or wusses or anything like that. But I guarantee you there's a lot more tough girls these days than tough men. So they do deserve their limelight. And I think it would be nice to start seeing if a lot more people start paying more attention to them for sure.
Well, I think we've been doing a pretty good job so far of highlighting quite a few athletes from around the world. Mike's done a great job on his show on Female Fridays. Scarlett's done an awesome show during the Female Fist. All told, we've uncovered quite a few incredible talents out there, including my favorite, Avril Mathy out of Miami. But there are so many great young female fighters out there who are on the rise due to what Claressa Shields has done to the sport, woken up that sport a bit, slapped it in the face a bit, said, I'm stepping back. I'm stepping out, as a matter of fact. I'm going over. I'm crossing the road. But she, in her wake, much to our pleasure, there's an awful lot of really good young female fighters out there. And will we take the word women out of women's boxing? Sure, why not? It's boxing. And believe me, Ebony Bridges took it on the chin, for lack of a better description, and put on a great fight, even though everyone was thinking, oh, she's just a swimsuit model. But at the end of the day, wow, what a fight that was. So I think a lot of guys are now in tune to what these girls are doing. And
in that fight, honestly, I seen a boxer continue with an eye swelled, completely shut.
Yep.
And continued for 2 more rounds and just gave it her all.
Yep.
When you know fully well that fight would have been called, the corner would have stopped it, or the guy would have tapped out. Very rarely do you see men going at it where they can't even see out of their eye.
Right.
And it just goes to show you that these girls, they're there to slug it out. They're there to, make their mark on this sport. They're there to prove that they deserve to be in the same caliber as these men and make the same kind of money? You know, why are we paying them less to fight when they're just as entertaining as the men?
Yeah.
You know, it's unfair. It's unfair. But we're working to change that.
Yes, we are.
Right now, currently.
Currently, this
now.
second,
Right
I
now.
have all these minions in the back going like this.
And Eddie
Bunch of
Hearn is
migrant
listening.
workers or something, or
Pete Taylor's listening.
Yes,
So,
yes, he is.
Anyway,
Very
I gotta
good.
go, boys.
On
Good
that
to
note,
be on board.
Knuckle Up fans, it's your boy Mike Rohr, 4 o'clock. You know what it is. Jab that like, hook, subscribe. Knock me off those comments. We'll see you tomorrow for Female Friday. Make sure you tune in.